Hello, and thank you so much for letting me speak to you today. My name is Sheila Lewis, and my job is to work on domestic violence and sexual assault policy for the city of Santa Fe. I bet you didn't know somebody had that job. I'm going to start off by telling two stories. They're not great stories, but they're going to have a good ending, so hang in there with me, okay? The first one is about Anna. Anna works as a home health care aide. Her husband works as a busser. And her husband's boss is stealing his wages, his tips. And he's pretty mad about it, but he's not saying a thing. He's just steaming because he needs that damn job. But when he comes home, he's really steaming. And so he drinks a little, and when he drinks, he gets mean, and he's a vicious guy. So he picks fights with Anna. And sometimes he put his hands around her neck just to shut her up. And sometimes she passes out, but she always comes back, and he doesn't leave a mark on her neck. Anna works, he works, but she doesn't have access to any of the money. He has it all locked up. It's his, as far as he's concerned, it's his bank account, his credit card. So Anna finally decides it's time to leave. But she finds out that Bob's been on a spending spree because he lost his job. He finally mouthed off. Well, good for him, but he doesn't have a job now. And he mouthed off, and now she found out he spent everything on crazy stuff because he was so mad. And now when she goes to get an apartment, she finds out they have repos, they have late payments, they have no payments, and she can't leave. And everybody asks her, why don't you just leave? And she says, what's my way out? And both Anne and Bob are on the same lease. And she says, I'm just going to walk away from this and do the best I can. And then she finds out she can't get out of this lease if she leaves. So when she goes to see the next landlord, he says, you've already got a lease. How are you going to pay for two? And he won't lease to her. And she says, what's my way out? And then sometimes when she's there, Bob really makes a racket and really strikes up a ruckus. And the neighbors call the cops. And the cops come. They've been there 7 times already. And guess what? Landlord says, you know what? You're a nuisance. I'm going to evict you. And when the next landlord looks at her records, which are all online, she finds out she has no way out. So why doesn't she leave him? Well, Anna ends up homeless, living in the car with the kids. She's done with it. And an anonymous complaint is called into CYFD. Well, not so anonymous, it's Bob. It's his revenge. And Bob tells them she's living in a car. CYFD says, we got to take the kids. You're not a fit parent. You need a job. You need an apartment if you want to get your kids back. And Anna looks at her kids and she thinks, there's no way out. Now here's another story about another family. That was Anna, she's A. We're now going to talk about Zena, she's Z, because there's a lot of people in between. Zena stays at home, takes care of the kids, and her husband Joe works at the lab. Has a damn good job, makes a lot of money at the lab. But he has a power and control issue. And he doesn't allow her name on the lease, on the credit cards, on the bank account, nothing. So when she goes to leave, she has no credit history whatsoever. And there's no one who wants to rent a place to her. So what's her way out? Well, when Joe finds out Zena's thinking about leaving, he tells her straight out, if you leave, I'll really do something to these kids and to our pets. That's a favorite one, right? But Zena doesn't back down until he makes good on his threat and pulls out a gun and says, you are going to listen to me because I've got some issues with power and control. Terrified, she goes to apply for an order of protection. And she finds out that even if she gets the order of protection, he can keep his gun. Oh, but what he will lose is his job at the lab because he'll lose his clearance. And she doesn't want that because that's the only money her kids have. Finally, Zena says, I've had enough of this. I'm going to get divorced. I'm going to get these kids and I'm going to get out of here. And she goes into court for her divorce and she discovers that her husband has money for a lawyer, but somehow or other she does not. She goes by herself in to see this judge. And the judge says to her, how are you going to support yourself? Where are you going to live? You don't even have any credit history and you've never even worked. And finally she says, you know what? One of his threats he made good on. He told me he would do something to the kids, and he's been sexually abusing the kids, both of them. And the judge says, oh, please. Please, what a cheap trick that is. And she says, no, it's the truth. It's the truth. But she doesn't have a lawyer, and he does. And so she goes into family services, and they evaluate her for who's going to get custody of the kids and how much time. And she's kind of hysterical at this point because she knows there's a man with a gun who's been sexually abusing her kid, and they are treating her like she is the bad person. And what she finds out is she's not alone. She's going to lose custody of her kids. That's a common everyday experience because she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have a place to live, and guess what? She looks crazy. She's making these crazy allegations against him because he has problems with power and control. Okay, these aren't great stories, are they? And you've probably all heard them a million times anyway. So I don't want to leave you there. I don't want to leave you hanging in these depressing stories. I want to tell you four. I thought of a fourth one while I was sitting here. 4 things that will lift your spirit on this issue here. First of all, this strangulation task force was formed, and we here in this amazing building, which is the first time I've ever been happy in this building, I have to say, was when that singing was going on. That was awesome. And in this building, a task force came together and they decided we need to address strangulation because it's such an inherent part of domestic violence. It doesn't leave any marks, but it damages your brain, makes you hysterical and terrified because somebody holds their life in your hands. And as a result of this task force, we got a bill passed. And the bill says it's against the law to strangle somebody in a domestic violence situation. You wouldn't have thought we needed that law. You probably thought you weren't supposed to do that already. Now there's a law that reminds you not to do it. And more importantly, because I don't think the criminal justice system has fixed the damn thing ever, what's really important is that we have been training EMTs, doctors, SANE nurses, every social service agency you can come up with. We've trained hundreds of people, and we're going to train thousands more. Everybody's going to know when somebody comes in, ask them about strangulation and treat them and give them the hope they need. So that's number 1. Number 2, the firearm relinquishment bill. Firearm relinquishment bill last year was not a very good bill because we didn't have a very good opportunity. This year's bill is going to be really excellent, and I think we're going to do really, really well with it. And what it says is, if you are a victim, if you are a perpetrator of domestic violence and you've been convicted of a misdemeanor domestic violence, you'll lose your right to a gun, just like you would with a felony. And if you are under an order of protection during the time you're under the order of protection, you cannot have a gun. This is a good gun bill, because everybody can agree that somebody who is violent and has expressed their violence enough in court for a judge to say, we aren't safe around you, should not have a gun. So this is going to be a great improvement, and this is going to pass, I guarantee it. We are going to start a domestic violence custody group. And anybody who's in that situation knows everybody probably knows somebody in that situation, doesn't know they know somebody in this situation. But if you know somebody, see me afterwards, because we're going to start a group and we're going to come up with some good ideas about how to address this. Maybe we'll ask for some licensing requirements for those people who make recommendations about children, and ask them to get a little DV training so they understand why she's so hysterical and that maybe she really is worried about her kids. Go figure. Okay, and then the next and most important one for all of us here, because it affects everybody, everybody. If you haven't seen the movie 0 Weeks, you must go see it. We need to have family paid leave, not paid by employers, not paid by little not-for-profits. That's ridiculous. I work with Solace. We couldn't possibly afford to do that unless people all sort of took up the slack. That's not a way to do it. The way to do it is everybody contributes, just like workers' comp, and everybody gets paid time off to take care of their children, to take care of their loved ones, to have a baby, to take care of themselves, and to live and to thrive and to become happy, healthy Americans.